What is up, and welcome back to another episode of Blood and Beer, the show where we talk blood sport and we drink beer. My name is Matt, your host, and as always, we got some MMA to talk some bare knuckle. Not really, I didn't watch too much of that last night. I wish I would have watched more. But we also got beer to drink. Another Rheingeist special here for me today. This one is Cheetah Lager. It's the Jungle Cat Limited Edition. I don't know what it's about, but we're about to find out. This is a Cincinnati Brewing Company here in Ohio. And after we try this out, we're going to recap UFC Fight Night, Rodriguez versus Lemos. And then we're going to also be previewing UFC 281, Adesanya versus Pereira. That's going to be an absolute banger. It's got a nice little amber color. At least I think that's amber. Again, I'm colorblind, so everything's a fucking guess for me. Alright. But yeah, UFC Fight Night. I said on my last episode this card doesn't have a lot of names on it, not the most exciting as far as just face value goes, but man, it was a hell of a card. It had 9 out of the 11 fights were finished were finishes either submission or knockout. It was a lot of fun to watch. It's pretty good. Not a ton of flavor, but definitely something I could sit and just sip on for all day. Yeah. So we'll jump into these fights though. I give that a 6-8. That's pretty damn good. But for UFC Fight Night, we're recapping that first. And like I said, fun card. It kicked off the night. We had a lady named Tamiris Vidal. She made her UFC debut against Ramona Pascual, and it wasn't a very long debut. Her ring walk lasted for absolutely ever. Fucking brutal to watch that. It took forever for her to get to the ring. But then fight starts off and kind of feeling out process. You can tell Vidal, she got some power, got some snap to her punches. Good lord. That was fucking disgusting. Yeah. But she jumps in, kind of a flying knee, lunge knee, nails Ramona Pascual right in the solar plexus, the gut region. Pascual screams out in pain. Vidal jumps on her, throws a couple more shots. Ref waves it off. I've never seen someone scream out in pain the way this lady did, because after the fight was waved off, she was still crying, like very loud crying from this shot. So I don't know, maybe fighting's not for her if she can't take the shots. That was a rough one to see, but you could tell this lady had some serious power. They call her the bulldozer, she says, because she just never stops moving forward. And then in the second fight, we had Jake Hadley take on Carlos Candelario. Both these guys, real quick starters. They go out there, they're just throwing balls to the wall. They're all out, really. They're all about it. And then they get through it. It looks like Hadley kind of has his number going into round 2. Candelario mixes things up, gets the takedown, goes immediately into a triangle choke. It's not locked in right away, though, but he's got him in the position where his legs are locked and the arm's in there, but it's not across the neck yet. Hadley does. He's on the bottom, and Hadley starts ripping these up elbows to Candelario's head. And it's like 90 seconds where they're in this position before Hadley's able to get the arm over across the neck, gets the tap out, second round finish. So there's 2 quick finishes in a row. And then fight number 3, we had Johnny Munoz taking on Ludwig Xiaolinlan. Xiaolinlan. Ludwig is a Ukrainian national team wrestler. He was on the Ultimate Fighter 30. He's a good little fighter, but Johnny Munoz went out there. He really put on a clinic, was out striking him in the grappling exchanges. There weren't many, but you could tell he had the upper hand there as well. He gets the unanimous decision victory. Not the most exciting fight, but Munoz has a fun style. He was a flashy little guy. Following that, though, we had Polyana Viana. She took on Jin Yu Frey, and she gets a 45-second knockout with a beautiful boxing combination that just kind of it freezes Frey right in her tracks. They're stand up. She lands a couple punches. Frey just keeps getting hit as she goes to the ground. It was crazy. So 45 seconds. That's a quick one. And then we had my favorite fight of the night. Mario Batista took on Benito Lopez. Benito Lopez had a long layoff. And Batista, he's a beast. And Lopez, he missed weight for this fight. They go out there. Lopez didn't look like he had time off. He didn't look like he had a lot of ring rust or anything. It's just Batista's a fucking dog. He's out there. He's popping the jab. He's working his way in. He's got real good counter kicks. Every time that Lopez would throw a kick, Mario Batista throws a kick right back, low leg kick. And then after he gets those established, he starts ripping combos to the body, boxing combos, just 3, 4, 5 punches at a time to the body. Then it goes to the ground. Mario Batista, he gets him in the full mount. Doesn't do a whole lot with it. Lopez gets out, but Batista keeps him down. He's just moving around, transitioning, landing some monster ground and pound. And then goes back into the mount. He gets Lopez in a triangle choke with the armbar to get the finish. At like 5 seconds left in the first round, this dude's going to be a problem. And I think that, yeah, I know that's the bantamweight division. That dude, he's calling for a top 15 matchup or close to it, and he looks like he's got some serious power when he's striking, real crisp, and the ground game was insane. I mean, he had a straight armbar at one point, then he switches over to the triangle with the armbar. It was fun. Then in the featured prelim, we saw Miranda Maverick absolutely dominate Shanna Young, 30-26 on all the scorecards. She's a problem in the women's flyweight division. She's only 25 years old, and the last loss she had, Macy Barber, I don't think she even lost that fight. It was a bad decision by the judges, in my opinion. But Miranda Maverick's just flying through these opponents they got for her. Out of breath. Beer break. Yeah, so that's the prelims. On the main card, the first fight we have was a fight that I got wrong when I made this pick. I thought Mark Madsen versus Grant Dawson was going to go Madsen just dominating, holding him down and wrestling him to death. It was really the other way around. Dawson, he's wrestling Maverick. He's wrestling Madsen's legs, just grabbing the legs and pulling him down, and he's just wearing him out. By the third round, you can tell Madsen was absolutely beat, just totally exhausted. And Grant Dawson locks in the rear naked choke to get the finish. So that's a fight I was super wrong about. I thought it was going to go the exact opposite. Tagir Ulanbekov, Khabib Nurmagomedov's prodigy, he took on Nate Maness and gets the first round guillotine. Just showed to be too much for him. Derek Minner versus Shayalan, let me get this right, Nurdonbeke, I think. Starts out, Minner throws a kick, hurts his knee right away. He can hardly stand up. And Nurdonbeke, he just finishes it off with ground and pound. It probably would have gone in Nurdonbeke's way anyways. I mean, he was a heavy favorite at like minus 380. But you hate to see a fight end because of injury, but is what it is. And then in the co-main event, we had Daniel Rodriguez take on Neil Magny. This was a back-and-forth battle. Round one, it was feeling out process. Rodriguez starts out quick, and then Magny starts to establish his jab, gets him in the clinch, starts landing some shots, and then finishes the round off on top, just backpacking Rodriguez. So Magny took round one. Round two, Rodriguez really rallies, starts to hurt Magny, starts landing some good combinations. Just total one-sided round, I thought, by Daniel Rodriguez in round two. In round three, we kind of mixed both of them together. It comes out, and Magny's popping his jab, and then Rodriguez wobbles Magny. Magny shoots for the takedown. They get to the clinch. He survives. And later in the round, Magny locks in the Darce choke, gets the finish. Called it right. The only one I got right on my last episode. But he gets the Darce choke, and now he has 20 wins in the UFC welterweight division. That's the most of anyone, even over George St. Pierre. So he's been around for a minute. He should have a record like that, but Neil Magny's a dog. There's a lot to say about longevity in that sport. All right, and then in the main event, we had Marina Rodriguez versus Amanda Lemos. it started off a little slow, just feeling each other out. A lot of these fights started off that way. And then Lemos really started to come into her own. And in round 3, she caught her, rocks Rodriguez, just swarms her with punches, and the ref has to pull her off. Standing TKO for Amanda Lemos. I don't know what's next, if she gets the title shot next or if she's got one more fight. She could take on Rose Namajunas. That'd be a good comeback fight for Rose. And with Lemos, it only takes one shot, and she's got that power to do that. So what's next for her, I don't know, but it was definitely a sight to see. I didn't think she was going to rock Rodriguez like that, but Rodriguez seemed a little bit scared of her power in that fight, and I think that was the difference maker. I need to start running or something. I'm running out of breath just doing this show. But that's what we have for UFC Fight Night for our recap. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into the UFC 281 preview. That's coming up this weekend. It's going to be Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya. And we're just going to start from the prelims, work our way all the way to the top. I got picks, I got ideas. I'm going to break down some of these fights, make some picks on some other ones. It's going to be fun. But in the first fight, at least the first fight at this time, we have Andre Petroski versus Wellington Thurman. They're kicking things off, and both these guys are grapplers. Wellington Thurman, I want to say he's a BJJ black belt. Andre Petroski says he's the best submission artist in the UFC. He's got quite a few submissions to prove it now. They're going to be going at it, and I think this is going to end up being a stand-up war because both men will respect each other on the ground. And in a stand-up war, I give the edge to Petroski. He's a lot more explosive, a lot more powerful, he looks like, with his striking. Thurman seems a little gun-shy, a little hesitant in his last couple fights, just not like he's comfortable throwing and standing and trading with his opponents. So I'm thinking Petroski takes this one, and I believe Petroski's a pretty big favorite at 2-1, but we'd have to run that back to see for sure. The fight I think I'm most excited for on the prelims is going to be Erin Blanchfield. She's taking on Molly Meatball McCann, Barstool athlete, Patty Pimblett's best friend. She's got the only woman with 2 spinning back elbow knockouts in the UFC, and she did them back-to-back over in London this past summer. She's electrifying. She's got a blitzing style, and that's just always fun to watch. Blanchfield, she's a dog, huge favorite at minus 360. Specializes on the ground, but she's really good everywhere. I think that I'm pulling for Molly McCann in this one, baby, but I don't know. Blanchfield's a lot. It's a big step up in competition. But if Meatball can just go in there and blitz her like she has her last couple opponents, get her up against the fence, get them bouncing, hit another spinning back elbow, that would be iconic. 3 in a row. I don't know. I'm taking the dog on that one, Molly McCann. It's going to be a fun fight, I think. And then we have Dominic Reyes, former UFC title challenger, 2-time title challenger actually, and he's only lost to former UFC champions in John Bones Jones, Jan Blachowicz, and current champion Yuri Prohaska. He's taking on Ryan Superman Spann. I'm thinking that this fight's going to Dominic Reyes, to be honest with you. Reyes, he's just a lot more experienced, a lot more technical. Spann's a dog, super explosive, super powerful, and he's good everywhere. I just don't think he's great anywhere. And I think that Dominic Reyes is going to use his experience and just keep Spann at range. I mean, Spann's last fight against the top opponent was Anthony Smith. He got stopped pretty quickly. I think it's going to be something similar to that. Not stopped necessarily, just a little bit of outclassed. And it's a Dominic Reyes comeback fight. He was replenishing that chin, getting it back because he'd been knocked out in his previous 2. And then currently the featured prelim, it's Renato Moicano. He's taking on Brad Riddell. This one's a pick'em for me. I'm not sure how Vegas has it right now. I have trouble picking it. Moicano, he's a BJJ ace, and he's a warrior on the feet. He can take some damage. He can dish it out. He showed that when he fought Rafael Dos Anjos. Riddell, he's a kickboxing stud. Israel Adesanya's training partner, Dan Hooker, all them out of City Kickboxing. He's a fun fighter, but I don't think his chin's necessarily where it needs to be. I don't think he has it. I want to say Moicano's taking it, but You know, it's one of those weird fights that could really go either way. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm not making a pick on it or anything, but that's going to be a fun fight. And then on the main card, kicking things off, we got Dan the Hitman Hooker. Hangman Hooker, sorry. He's taking on Claudio Puelles. Puelles, submission stud. He's got 2 knee bar submissions in the UFC, one over Clay Guido. And Dan Hooker, he's on a 1-4. He's 1-4 in his last 5. He's a warrior. He's got a chin. He's got heart, and he's a fucking bruiser. He'll just keep moving forward. He don't give a fuck. I don't know if his chin's gone or returning to lightweight's going to be a good thing for him, but Claudio Puelles, if he can get this to the ground, it's not going to be pretty for Hooker because he's got a lot of submissions. He's just a stud on the ground. One of those dudes you don't want to be rolling with. I don't know who's going to win it for sure. I'm pulling for Hooker. I want Hooker to win, but yeah, it's just tough because that one takedown could be all it takes. If Claudio Puelles can turn it to a ground game, that could be all she wrote for Dan Hooker. And then following that fight, we have Frankie Edgar, former UFC champion. He's having his retirement fight, and he's taking on Chris Gutierrez. Gutierrez, absolute killer. Dude's got plenty of knockouts. He's finished fights with leg kicks. He's finished fights with punches. I mean, he's powerful. He's dynamic. He's explosive. Frankie Edgar, though, since he's moved to bantamweight, he's a pressure fighter. He always moves forward. Doesn't look like he's got a ton of power, but he's just always throwing strikes, just punching his way in. He's not trying to wrestle you. He's not trying to just survive. He's wanting to fight. He's on a 2 knockout skid, but one of those was right away against Corey Sandhagen's flying knee where he just went down. I mean, it was scary to see, but he was out before he hit the ground. The other one, he was beating Marlon Cheeto Vera, I thought, and then Cheeto lands an up kick, just like how Tony Ferguson got caught. Sleeps Frankie Edgar, so I think Edgar's still got all the skills in the world. It's just going to be, is he going to be gun shy from getting knocked out these past 2 times? And he's been saying, I don't want to take too much more damage. This is my last fight. So he might be gun shy in this one, might be scared to take some damage. If he's not, though, I think Edgar takes it. It's just Gutierrez, not a guy you want to be gun shy against because he can do some serious damage. He's won 7 of his last 8, and I think the one fight that he didn't win, or no, he's on a 7-fight unbeaten streak. 6 out of 7 wins. 1 was a no contest. That's what it is. It's going to be a fun one. I mean, this whole card is fucking stacked. It's going to be a great card, I think. I'm definitely not missing this one. It's just MSG. It's lined up. And for the 3 big fights, the 3 final fights, it doesn't get better than this. We kick things off with Michael Chandler taking on Dustin Porrier. Since coming to the UFC, Michael Chandler has been just absolutely electric, complete entertainment the entire time. His fight against Dan Hooker, he knocks him out quick. He fights Charles Oliveira in what was probably fight of the year at that time. Then Justin Gaethje, he fights him, fight of the year. Just absolutely swinging bombs, knocks out Tony Ferguson. Most entertaining fighter in the UFC right now. And he's taking on one of the best in the world in Dustin Porrier. Probably one of, if not the best boxer in the UFC right now. He's coming off a loss to Charles Oliveira, but who hasn't lost to Charles Oliveira if not named Islam Makhachev? And Poirier's a beast on the ground. I don't see it going there, though, because so is Chandler. It's going to be a striking affair. If Chandler keeps it tight and isn't going to just entertain fans, I really see him having a solid shot at taking this. But Poirier is so technical. He's very accurate with his strikes. He hits you right on the money. You saw it against Conor McGregor. He really uses those low kicks well as well. Low kicks good as well. I don't know. Grammar sounds off there. But no pick in that fight. It could really go either way depending on what Chandler shows up. But yeah, I'm just excited to be able to watch that. Still out of breath. It's like a marathon on this show. All right. And then in our first championship fight, we have Carla Esparza. She's taking on Zhang Weili, defending her belt against Zhang Weili. And Weili's looking to capture the gold again. She came up short twice against Rose Namajunas. This fight, she is one of the best women's fighters of all time. I think it's going to be trouble for Carla Esparza, and Vegas sees it that way too. At 4-1 odds for Zhang Weili. I just saw a video this week where she picked up 265-pound Francis Ngannou with absolute ease, no problem at all. Picks him up over her shoulder by one leg. I mean, the woman's tough. And Carla Esparza, she's a great wrestler, but Zhang Weili has that in her bag of tricks too. She's no slouch on the ground. It's going to be, I really don't see a path to victory for Esparza because Zhang Weili's she's a fucking Energizer bunny. Never stops moving forward. She's scary. She's strong. You saw what she did against Joanna Jędrzejczyk in her last fight, spinning back fist knockout. Dynamic, great striking, great wrestling. She beats everybody not named Rose Namajunas, and it's not even close in a lot of her fights. So I'm locking in Weili on this fight. You're not getting much money back if you put it down on her, but that's got to be one of the highest odds for a challenger to come in that high of a favorite against the champion. And then in the main event, we have Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. These two do not fucking like each other. They fought twice in kickboxing back in, I want to say 2016 or 17. Alex Pereira, he took them both. He gets a decision in one of the fights and absolutely sleeps Adesanya, sends him to the hospital in the next one. I mean, Pereira's got some serious power. He's been doing that since coming to the UFC. He slept Sean Strickland. He slept Nilakitis. He beat Bruno Silva pretty convincingly. He's got some insane power, and it's deceptive because it doesn't look like he's loading up or throwing hard strikes or anything like that. But then he hits people, the equilibrium's thrown off, or they're sleeping. I mean, this guy just unreal power. And Adesanya, I mean, we know all about him. He's the best striker in the UFC right now. His ability to control distance, his ability to hit you without getting hit. I mean, he's a beast, and he's been dominant. He hasn't lost at 185 in the UFC yet. The difference between Pereira and all his other opponents, though, other than Pereira's beaten him before, is that Pereira's the same size as Izzy, just as long. It's like 79-inch reach to 80-inch reach, not a big advantage. 6'5", 6'6", and he's a pro kickboxer. Izzy's a pro kickboxer. He's got the confidence that I've already beat this guy. He's not coming in scared like a lot of his other opponents have in the past. That nuclear option can prove to be devastating for Izzy. And I mean, Pereira is the most nuclear option that there is with his power. It's unreal. Just watch the Strickland fight if you got 3 minutes of your day. It's insane what he did to that man. And Strickland's got a fucking chin on him. He's a dog. So I don't have a pick for that fight. It's going to be fucking entertaining, I think. Izzy says that fuck the belt. I'm not worried about it. I want to beat Pereira. He just wants to get that fight back. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But I really don't have a pick on it. I can't wait for the card. That's this Saturday, November 12th on ESPN Plus pay-per-view, and it's going down in Madison Square Garden. All right, and then next week we have that's all we have for this week's fights. Next week I'm going to be previewing. I'll recap that card, of course, and then we'll preview the Bellator 288 Corey Anderson versus Vadim Nemkov. I'm super excited for that card. We get to see Patricky Fieri. He's taking on Khabib's cousin, Umar Nurmagomedov. That'll be fun. See if Dagestan can get a second belt at the same time. So yeah, I've been Matt. This has been Matt with Blood and Beer. I've always been Matt, and the beer that we had again, it was the Cheetah Lager by Rheingeist 6.8. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week.